Poland is terrified that Vladimir Putin's goals will get bigger and that he will send his Russian military across the 125-mile border that Russia and Poland share. While Poland has reason to be nervous, Putin seems intent on restoring the Soviet empire that collapsed in December of 1991. His annexation of Crimea in March of 2014 is one clue, followed by the Russian invasion of Ukraine 13 months ago. After World War II, Poland became a communist satellite state of the Soviet Union, but that ended in 1991, 8 years later in 1999, and then Poland joined NATO in 1999. So fast forward to now, and Poland is supporting Ukraine in its battle against invading Russians. In addition to providing refuge for several million Ukrainians, now Poland is becoming the first NATO nation to supply fighter jets to Ukraine. Polish President Duda saying Poland will deliver 4 MiG-29 fighter jets in the next few days. Ukraine fighter jets are already operable for the Ukrainians because they fly the MiG-29, so no additional training is needed. So is the U.S. also going to send fighter jets to Ukraine? Well, National Security Council spokesperson Admiral John Kirby told reporters today, quote, "It's not on the table right now." Former Navy Pentagon staff member and retired U.S. Navy Captain Brent Sadler joins us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Before I get to the issue of Poland, I want to talk a little bit about North Korea, because you've spent a lot of time in that area. They're firing off missiles. What do you see is going on there in North Korea?
Well, these recent cruise missiles, submarine-launched cruise missiles, as well as ballistic missile launch just a few days, time for the Prime Minister and the President of South Korea and Japan's meeting earlier today. It's basically a return back to a normal, the first year of Trump's administration, we had the maximum pressure campaign, and then we were kind of in a pause on this kind of behavior. I think because of what the regime in Pyongyang sees as an opportunity or weakness, they're going back to old behavior.
Well, they certainly don't like Japan. North Korea is not like Japan. They don't like South Korea. They don't like us. And they do see they're somewhat isolated in the region, except for they do have their friends, Communist China. Is it an increased isolation, or are they having economic problems at home, or is it that they see the U.S. going through these military drills?
So I think two things for the North Koreans. One is that they don't like anyone around them. They have no trust, and they certainly don't have any true friends in the area. But one part of this is an operational perspective. They're testing out these systems. They're working out the bugs in these ballistic missiles and the cruise missiles. The submarine version is very troubling, but it's also very new. So the more they shoot and they test, they'll start to perfect those systems. But they have no friends in the region. It's really, if nothing else, to basically pressurize or to draw attention to animosities between South Korea and Japan, to draw attention to a very bad history of Japanese colonization, and two issues get the emotions up in Seoul every time: comfort women and forced labor from World War II.
Let me turn now to Poland. I hate to be an alarmist about what's going on there. Since the war started, I've been to the region, to Ukraine and Poland 4 times. People in Poland are frightened. And the U.S. has said from the beginning that, NATO's not going to get involved, no involvement by NATO. But I see this, not to be an alarmist, but I do see this as an escalation that now Poland, a NATO member, is supplying these MiGs to Ukraine.
Well, I think on one level, supplying the MiGs is not necessarily crossing a line that we haven't already gone over, and that is supplying a lot of equipment, a lot of long-range artillery, and it definitely, the Ukrainians need it, and it's something they are familiar with. It's a fighter aircraft that makes sense. The debate that's ongoing right now about F-16s, there's a lot of reasons that doesn't make sense to go to Ukraine. But I don't see this necessarily as crossing a line, and the Poles know the Russians. They suffered under Soviet domination, and before that, the Tsarist Russia before, so they know what they're dealing with.
All right, you say not crossing the line, and I agree with you that, but I actually thought, going back, that that we've supplied so much. I thought, when is Putin going to say that is crossing the line? Because in many ways, it seems like a proxy war that we're fighting with Russia, and so I thought Putin could have said long ago that this is NATO. But each step, as we add more to this layer, is now it's a NATO sending the fighter jets. That is something new. And at what point does Putin say this is NATO and he gets more aggressive?
Well, I would say he's already been saying that this is all about the United States and NATO, and that this was instigated on by our own doing. This was a war that he didn't choose to enter into. So there is this kind of Russian mentality, and they do believe it, quite frankly, pretty thoroughly. So pushing back against that, it's only going to be with a strong and forceful military presence that's going to be peace through strength kind of thematics.
Do you think Putin wants Poland? I mean, the people of Poland do.
I think that would probably be a bite too big for him to take anytime soon, but the Russians have a history of taking their time about it. It took them 100 years to push the Turks out of what is now Ukraine and Romania. So they could take their time about it. Maybe whoever follows after Putin passes the world stage might continue that on.
Brent Sadler, thank you very much, sir. Thank you.